Number 10. The Joker. You might be shocked to see the Joker on this list, but in the Joker 80th Anniversary 100-page super spectacular, the Joker actually manages to do something a little sweet for a change. But don't worry, it's only a little sweet. He is on his way to take care of a henchman who failed him by not showing up when he was supposed to, and the Joker actually thinks that this guy may have sold out his plans to the Batman. Not good. However, while on his way to seek revenge, he runs into what he deems as the weird yet wise son of this goon named Sergio. Sergio charms the Joker with his little torture bug box, and Joker discovers that today is Sergio's birthday party when Sergio mistakes him for a hired party clown, but informs him that he doesn't have to actually do anything because no one has come to his birthday party. Not even his dad. Oh, that's really sad. Joker thinks that this just isn't right and terrifies the neighborhood families into attending and promises before leaving to come to Sergio's birthday party every year. Aw, it's kinda sweet. Sure, it was still pretty terrible the way that Joker went about helping, but in the end, I think he sees some of his tormented self in Sergio, and it's kinda cute that this inspires him to try and help the young boy, even if it is in his own, well, twisted Joker-like way. Number 9. MCU's Ghost. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ghost is not as mysterious of a figure as their comic book counterpart. When it is revealed partway through the film she first appears in, Ant-Man and the Wasp, to be Ava Starr, the daughter of Hank Pym's former associate. Ava was turned intangible following one of her father's experiments gone wrong, which resulted in an explosion that also claimed the lives of both of her parents. Pym's other former partner, Bill Foster, aka Goliath, took her in and proceeded to try and help cure her of her painful intangibility. This prompted Ava to become the villain known as Ghost, attempting to take revenge on the Pyms who she blames for the death of her parents and her own condition. In the end, however, Janet Van Dyne works to help cure Ava, helping her to realize the error of her ways and to soothe her vengeful spirit, turning Ghost into a more neutral or heroic role, who instead aims to work alongside Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, Ant-Man, and the Wasp.
Coming in at number 7, we have Venom, the strange goop from outer space that looked for the strongest guy in town for his host. That's when we got the amazing black suit Spider-Man that doesn't even need web blasters. Say what? But then Venom gets a little too handsy and starts to get into Peter's psyche. After that, Peter kicks him off and the symbiote finds Eddie Brock. So the symbiote was pissed that Spider-Man kicked him out, and Eddie Brock hated Peter Parker, so the two of them were a match made in heaven and went out of their way to try and kill the web slinger. Venom is more of a tale of a scorned lover than anything else. Eventually, Venom works his way onto Flash Thompson after he loses his legs at war. Thompson uses the symbiote for only 48 hours at a time, and it allows him to become a super soldier who fights for good. And then we got introduced to Venom's homeworld, where we find out that symbiotes head out to other planets to find great heroes and bind with them. When Spider-Man rejected the symbiote, this caused it to go a little crazy and always wanted to get him back. So really, Venom is just the story of a really bad breakup.
And number 6, Red Hood. Jason Todd started out as a hero. He was the second Robin in line, actually, until he was done dirty. Yeah, the Joker straight up beats him to death. So then he decided the dark side was the way to go. And we see this come full circle in Under the Red Hood. But he's still got some heart left in that broken soul. I mean, he relentlessly beats criminals to a bloody pulp, but he doesn't hurt innocent civilians. And honestly, I feel like Batman is too easy on some of these fools. I mean, of course, the reason Jason Todd becomes this dark, leather-wearing jacket arm breaker is because Batman didn't avenge his death. Red Hood finds a line in between both of those worlds, and due to his own troubled upbringing, he actually cares for the well-being of children. He likes kids, how nice. So recently he's worked alongside fellow anti-heroes like Arsenal and Starfire.
Coming in number 5, we have Doc Ock. Is this guy the best Spider-Man villain of all time? Well, that's up for debate, but he's definitely up there. The guy has been bad to the bone ever since he was created, and even did some super slimy stuff like marrying Aunt May. But all that would change when he went out of his way to change bodies with Peter Parker. See, Doc Ock was about to die, but he wasn't going down without a fight, so he switched bodies with Peter Parker to have his young, fresh spider body. And guess what? Peter ended up dying in the old, crummy Doc Ock body, but not before he transferred all of his thoughts, emotions, and morality into Doc Ock, who was now in his body. So now Doc felt what it meant to be a hero, but was still himself, but in Spider-Man's body. A little confusing, but I trust that you guys are following me. Well, because of this, the new version of Doc decided that he would be a hero, but he still hated Spider-Man. So he decided that he would be a better hero than Spidey had ever been before to show him up, and that's when we get the Superior Spider-Man run of comics.
And number 4, another Doctor, this time Dr. Doom. Making his first appearance in Fantastic Four issue 5, Victor Von Doom likes to go head to head with the Fantastic Four. He's one of the most popular Marvel villains ever. I mean, he's so smart, this guy's a straight up genius. He's the ruler of the land Latveria, and things take a turn for the better after Tony's death in Civil War II. So the infamous Iron Man series by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleeves has one of the most popular front cover illustrations ever. He was a hero for a while, and it all started when Doom was running the show in the multiverse in Secret Wars. His face healed, and that was the start of his good tendencies. He's like, wait, Face ID actually works? This is so much easier. I don't have to take off my metal gauntlets every time I want to send a tweet. Sick. I'm gonna go save Maria Hill from Diablo. BRB.
Number 3, Ozymandias. Adrian Veidt actually was a hero for a good amount of the Watchmen story, until, of course, we found out that he's really the mastermind supervillain behind all the schemes and the murder. However, everything dastardly that he does is all for the betterment of mankind on a greater scale. What he's trying to sow with his chaos and crimes is a sense of unity, to make everyone see the importance of peace once more, and to believe in superheroes again. So yeah, I guess there is a bit of an ego included in his plot with, you know, he kinda wants to be the hero. But still, overall, if we were to give Ozymandias any sort of alignment, it would probably be lawful good. Good being the important word there. Sure, his plan didn't exactly turn out the way he'd hoped, and in the end he finds his whole villainous machinations exposed by Rorschach's journals, but hey, he tried. Number 1, Poison Ivy. As far as good intentions go, Dr. Pamela Isley likely has some of the best. Before she was granted her plant-controlling powers, she was labeled a villain just for being an aggressive environmentalist. For her ruthless attitude toward protecting plant life, she was considered a supervillain and an eco-terrorist. But really, Poison Ivy just wants to take care of the planet and its plant life. And when she used her powers to control all of Gotham, things actually proved to be going pretty well under her rule. Although at the cost of free will, of course. Number 7, Sabretooth. I know what you're likely thinking here, Sabretooth, but he's meant to be kind of the worst of the worst. He's feral and bloodthirsty and often kills without any remorse. How could he be a good guy? Well, I would argue that a lot of what makes Sabretooth evil actually has to do with the way that he was raised. He himself could be a hero in another life. In fact, in the Age of Apocalypse universe, he kinda is. AOA Sabretooth ends up working alongside the displaced heroic alternates team known as the Exiles, and Sabretooth was one of the few to stay reversed after the events of Axis, which caused him to continue to push forward with his want to be a hero, following in Wolverine's footsteps. He even became the leader of his own mutant team for a while, Weapon X-Force, and had found love with fellow teammate Monet. Number 5, Dr. Freeze. Freeze being a hero all depends on your perspective really, as so many stories do when it comes to the roles that characters play. And it also kinda depends on which story we're telling. There is a story where Freeze is a man obsessed with a woman who he romanticizes, imagining she will awake from her frozen slumber and fall in love with him, like some sort of twisted Sleeping Beauty plot. However, the story we'd like to focus on, where he is the hero, is the one where he is only turning to a life of crime to help fund a project. However, the story we'd like to focus on, Freeze actually froze his wife Nora in order to cure her from her illness, so his whole freezing thing is all about just taking care of his wife. Number 4, Catwoman. Granted, not everyone thinks of Selina as a supervillain, but that just proves how good she is at, well, being good. When Catwoman was first introduced in the comics, it was as a cat burglar who at that time just went by the name of Cat, and was fond of stealing the money and jewels of the wealthy. Of course, later on, as Selina's story progressed, she would become an even bigger love interest for Batman and Bruce, and would often work with him as his ally, for a time almost permanently seeming to switch sides and becoming more of a hero than anything else. She would later learn, however, that some of her good deeds were not really of her own volition, as Zatanna had actually manipulated her mind, making Catwoman debate whether or not she was ever really good at heart to begin with. I think, however, that Selina has always had that good side to her though, whether or not she is always aware of it. Number 3, Sandman. Despite being one of the classic Spider-Man villains, Sandman held a long running stint of heroism in between his criminal escapades, spanning from about 1982 to 1998. It all started when Sandman befriended the Thing and expressed regret for his life of villainy. The Thing took pity on the Sandman and decided not to turn him in, hoping Sandman would actually turn things around. I'm noticing a pattern here, wherein heroes believe in the ability for a villain to change their ways, and then it just somehow magically works. Because yes, like other villains, this leap of faith ended up being a worthwhile one. Sandman later actually saves Spider-Man from the Enforcers, and even ends up working for the Silver Sable. Sandman was also a member of the team built of former villains, the Outlaws, where he also fought alongside Spider-Man. He has even held probationary status as an Avenger. You know you're doing something right when the Avengers invite you to join up. Number 2. KARN. If you didn't know how much I love the Spider-Verse, my number 2 should be enough to inform you. KARN was originally a member of the Inheritors, a family of energy-feeding vampires who ended up traveling through the multiverse and feeding off of and killing spider totems. What is a spider totem? Some of you may be wondering. Spider totems are alternate spider people from other universes. Think Spider-Ham or Spider-Gwen. KARN was always considered an outcast though, when it came to the Inheritors and his family. He was often looked down upon. He was in fact killing spider totems, mostly to appease them and be allowed back into the family and return home. After being defeated by a team from the Spider Army, he was offered a truce. The Spider Army wanted KARN to join them, and used details they had of the Inheritors and his life to try to persuade him. They later revealed that they had received these details from the Master Weaver. After the events of Spider-Verse wherein the Master Weaver perished, it was revealed that the Weaver was actually KARN from the future, and so KARN from the present took his future self's place and completed this weird time loop. As Master Weaver, he worked to help defend the world and spider totems from the Inheritors. I love the Spider-Verse.
Coming in at number 10, we have James Proudstar, aka the hero Warpath. A mutant that developed superhuman strength, Warpath idolized the X-Men as a young man when his older brother, Thunderbird, joined the team. However, Thunderbird tragically died on his very first mission, an incident that caused Warpath to begin to hate the X-Men and become obsessed with killing Professor Charles Xavier. Briefly joining with the villain group called the Hellions, Warpath would eventually see the error of his ways and return to the side of good, frequently fighting alongside the New Mutants to help save both humanity and all of mutant kind. Coming in at number 9, we have Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow. That's right, while she might be best known now for being an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and being one of the most resourceful members on the Avengers team, the Black Widow still has an awful lot of red in her ledger. In her very first appearance, Black Widow was attempting to rob Iron Man's tech with the help of another villainous thief at the time, Hawkeye. While Hawkeye would see the error of his ways a bit quicker than Natasha, she would go on to be brainwashed by the infamous Red Room, training her to be a remorseless assassin, skills that she now uses today as a member of the Avengers to try and make up for her bloody past. Coming in at number 8, we have Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. Originally believed to have perished during Captain America's World War II era adventures, Bucky was in fact captured and brainwashed by the villainous organization Hydra, turning him into the perfect weapon and such a deadly assassin that he would become infamous throughout the Marvel Universe, even rumored to be involved in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. It was only through the dedication of his best friend Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, that Bucky was finally able to remember who he is and abandon his villainous career. While he's since started using his lethal training for the side of good, the Winter Soldier is still a brutal opponent, and with an arm made out of pure vibranium, surviving one of his punches is something that his enemies should definitely still be worried about.
Number 7. Rocket Racer. For those that aren't familiar with Rocket Racer, he was introduced to the comics in 1977 as a villain who zoomed around on a rocket-powered skateboard. Pretty cool. Rocket Racer, aka Robert Farrell, has no powers himself but relies on his intellect, building tech that allows him to appear super. Rocket Racer originally turned to a life of heroism after being saved by Spider-Man and returning to school. He eventually joined a crime-fighting group, the Outlaws. During this time he helped Spider-Man and the team defeat both the Magia and Space Phantom. Though he has since flip-flopped back to his life of crime, Rocket Racer has spent enough time doing good that we may very well see him flop back. Perhaps we may even get to see him introduced as a hero in the MCU. Who knows? Number 6. Norman Osborn. I feel like the bigger of a villain you are to Spider-Man, the more potential you have to be touched by his influence. Norman Osborn's Green Goblin has been a long-standing villain to Spidey, but did you know that he was once the leader of the Avengers? Okay, maybe not like quite the Avengers. After the events of Secret Invasion, Norman Osborn brought us the Dark Avengers to help fill the void of the dissolved Avenger team after Earth's mightiest heroes were forced to disband. Not only that, but Osborn also created and helped run Hammer after the dissolution of Fury's shield. Although the team was comprised of villains, he managed to prove that even the vilest villains can still be used to do good. In fact, their willingness to do whatever it took often made them better than their heroic counterparts. Turning Bullseye into a Hawkeye? Sheer genius, Norman. Number 5. Morbius. This living vampire has had a turbulent past when it comes to his experience with heroism. Despite having originally fought Spider-Man when he was introduced, Morbius quickly had a change of heart. Unsurprisingly, in my opinion, considering his backstory shows us that he was simply a doctor working toward curing a blood disease and his treatment accidentally made him a vampire. Oops. Since this initial fight, Morbius has been seen fighting alongside the Avengers and Blade. Yep, you heard me right, there are quite a few comics where we see Blade join Morbius. Morbius was even tasked with trying to get Blade to register with S.H.I.E.L.D. under the SRA during the events of Civil War. How cool would it be to see Wesley Snipes cast alongside perhaps someone like Alexander Skarsgård in a Morbius and Blade buddy vampire team-up film? Ooh. Number 4. Prowler. Whether we talk about Earth 1610 Prowler Aaron Davis or Earth 616 Prowler Hobie Brown, both have seemingly had a change of heart. But today, let's talk about Hobie Brown. We can save Aaron's story for maybe some, I don't know, some Miles Morales videos. Would anyone be interested in those? Me. Hobie Brown's involvement with crime was short-lived. He never hurt anyone and really was only involved so he could get some quick money and use it to take care of and marry his girlfriend Mindy. Aww. After being caught and spared by Spider-Man, he turns to a life of heroism and vigilante justice. He can often be seen teaming up with Spider-Man and, like Rocket Racer, is also a member of the Outlaws. Not only that, but Hobie often works under the guise of Spider-Man, helping to assist Peter in protecting his secret identity.
Coming in at number 3, we have Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver. A super speedster with a complicated backstory that's gone back and forth on both his parentage and whether his powers are mutant in origin, Quicksilver was one of the original members of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, before eventually being convinced of Magneto's villainy, I wonder if the phrase evil mutants had anything to do with that, and joined the Avengers instead, at the very same time as early member Hawkeye. With nearly all of his abilities focused on making his body and movement as aerodynamic as possible, Quicksilver's speed has been theorized to be limitless, even if his powers don't quite compare to all of the extra abilities of the DC Universe's Speed Force. Nevertheless, Quicksilver is incredibly fast for the Marvel Universe, and let's keep hoping that he continues to run for the good guys. Coming in at number 2, we have Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch. Originally believing herself to be the mutant daughter of Magneto, Wanda is in reality one of the most powerful magic wielders in the Marvel multiverse, and a conduit for chaos magic that allows her to rewrite reality to her will. And while she was one of the first members of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, given the whole thought he was her dad thing, she'd eventually become an essential member of the Avengers, even if she does occasionally have brief forays into more anti-hero-like activities, such as the whole M-Day scenario. But hey, nobody's perfect.
At number 10, I'm putting Hawkeye. Introduced first as a circus performer, Hawkeye starts his career as not much of a hero at all, but a villain. When he first decides to put on the suit and start going by the Hawkeye moniker, he teams up with Black Widow and takes on numerous heroes as a bad guy. After he and Black Widow fall in love, they become committed to this lifestyle for 2 whole years. But after his time as a crook, Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, decides it's time for him to change things up. Basically, he just realizes that the supervillain lifestyle isn't for him and approaches the Avengers with the proposition that he joins them. Pretty bold. But they actually accept his offer and he seamlessly joins the team and fights evil for the rest of his career. It's a pretty quick and easy transition to the good side, and it proves that it's not always some big event or reckoning that can change someone's moral alignment. Sometimes you just gotta go with your gut. At number 9 is the Riddler. This is a pretty goofy one because the Riddler makes this shift to the good side due to a bonk on the head by Shining Knight, which I think is a very funny way to turn to the good side. Not only does he decide he's finished with a life of crime, but he also loses his interest in riddles entirely. And with his memory of all his past deeds wiped, he's able to start completely anew as a detective on the streets of Gotham. With a bit of an infamous celebrity status, as you could expect, Detective Riddler has a decent career as a detective and is even hired by Batman and Nightwing twice along the way. A Riddler with no interest in riddlers or doing harm, I suppose, just leaves a pretty smart dude who can get stuff done. He still wears all green though, which probably isn't great for blending in.
Coming in at number 7, we have the infamous Harley Quinn. Originally a psychiatrist at Arkham Asylum who took a particular fascination in the Joker, Harleen Quinzel was manipulated over time into breaking the Joker free and killing a guard, before the Joker pushed her into a similar vat of chemicals to the one that had created him in the first place. Reborn as the Joker's second in command, Harley believed she was in love for years as she helped the Joker with his schemes and war against Batman, but would eventually come to realize that the Joker was a violent man with no genuine feelings for her. Ever since, Harley has struggled to keep doing the right thing and has become more of an anti-hero than an outright villain, fighting back against the clown prince of crime that took so much away from her. Coming in at number 6, we have Selina Kyle, aka the one and only Catwoman. Originally just a cat burglar in a slightly more elaborate costume, Catwoman terrorized Gotham City for a while as her heists grew more and more elaborate and continued to be foiled by that pesky Batman. Eventually, however, Selina would wind up prioritizing those she cares about more than her thieving ways or connections to other supervillains, and combined with her growing romance with Batman after years of merely being flirty rivals, it finally looks like Catwoman might be permanently fighting for the good guys from now on. Just, you know, don't blame her if anything too expensive goes missing. Coming in at number 5, we have Patrick O'Brien, aka Plastic Man. Typically seen as one of the comic relief members of the Justice League, Plastic Man's origins actually began with him being a common criminal, a safecracker for a band of burglars. Following a robbery gone wrong, Patrick was shot, covered in chemicals, and left for dead, unintentionally causing his transformation into Plastic Man. Capable of completely manipulating his body down to the molecular level, Plastic Man is essentially indestructible given how flexible he's able to become. Completely impervious to physical damage, Plastic Man has also shown a complete immunity to mind control or telepathic suggestions, as his brain isn't made of enough solid matter to control. All of these facts combined make Plastic Man a very redeemed superhero. Coming in at number 4, we're gonna have to go with the famous, or should I say infamous, Deadpool. Originally designed to be a dark but slightly sarcastic villain for the X-Force comic series, Deadpool has over the years turned into a charming and fourth wall breaking anti-hero that's always trying to do some form of good, but sometimes shows it in some pretty odd and violent ways. However, the most notable aspect of Deadpool's powers and what makes him so powerful is his sheer inability to die. No matter how many times you stab him, shoot him, or chop some bits off, Deadpool will always bounce back with at least a couple of bad jokes. Add in his not insignificant skill with all manner of firearms and weaponry, and you've got an explosive anti-hero you do not want to mess with.
Finally, at number 1 is Punisher. I put Punisher up at number 1 because he's got to be one of the most badass superheroes of all time, and the fact that he chooses to do good is a really cool character trait considering his look and how he carries himself. It sort of proves that the good side can even be enticing for someone as naturally dark and troubled as Frank Castle. First appearing as a villain, the Punisher is vying to seek revenge on Spider-Man, who he believes killed Norman Osborn. But after his first appearance as a villain, Castle makes it his duty to take on crime as a vigilante. He just does things his own way, through torture, extortion, and kidnapping, among other means. He just doesn't care how he gets his work done, but hey, he's still technically on the good side, regardless of how he does things.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Clayface. Basil Karlo, aka Clayface, made his first debut back in 1940 in Detective Comics numero 40. He was an actor that had gone a touch crazy when a remake of his classic movie was released with a new actor, kind of like that RoboCop remake that 7 people saw. So he decided to adopt the persona of an old villain he played called Clayface. This guy's pretty neat. I mean, he can mimic anybody just by getting a smidge of DNA. So if you sneeze around him, he can be like, and then turn into you. He's wild, he's sick. He can change the shape and size of his body. Solid actor, so method. Cut to Detective Comics Volume 1, issue 934. Clayface had escaped Arkham Asylum to go and see himself on the big screen. So as the crowd of moviegoers sprint out to avoid this monster mash, Clayface is left sitting there wide-eyed wondering what could have been. So Batman and Batgirl enter the theater, shocked that this is the reason why he escaped Arkham Asylum. All he wants in this moment is to watch the 84-minute movie and feel like him again. Batman responds with, well, what if I could give you more than that, Basil? What's the catch, he answers? Well, the catch is, says Batgirl, you're gonna have to do everything we say. And poof, we have Clayface on the home team.
And before we move on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and toss this video a like, it really helps us out. Thank you so much, you guys are the best. Coming in at number 9, we have Magneto. The master of magnetism is one of the best villains ever made. He has been going toe to toe with the X-Men since they first got started, and the entire time he has wanted the X-Men, the human race, and his brother Charles to submit to his will and see him and mutants as the rightful masters of planet Earth. I mean, we could go on for hours to break down all the terrible things that he's done. I mean, he is the leader of a group called the Brotherhood of Evil. It doesn't sound like they were into planting trees and creating clean energy, but Magneto's hate towards humans was justified since he saw humans take his family members to Auschwitz during World War II. But eventually, Magneto started to despise humans a little less and warmed up to Charles and the idea that humans and mutants could coexist on the same planet. There was even a time when Charles put Magneto in charge of his famous School of the Gifted. That should have been a shock to so many members of the X-Men, but eventually people started to understand Magneto's approach to running the X-Men, even if it was a little more heavy-handed.
Alright, at number 7 we've got Rogue. This is a pretty cool one. Originally brought on by Mystique to join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Rogue is only a teen when she chooses the path of evil. But the way she gets out of her dark ways is pretty unique and makes a lot of sense, all things considered. During a battle with the Avengers, Rogue absorbs the powers of Carol Danvers, or Miss Marvel at the time. But instead of losing these borrowed powers after a while, which is normally how Rogue's abilities work, Carol Danvers' powers and even her memories stick around. With this hero's thoughts in her head, she goes to Professor X to try to clear them out using his help, and this visit is when she becomes friendly with Charles Xavier, eventually joining the X-Men. At number 5, we've got MODOK Superior. This dude is a bit of a weirdo, and probably one of the last villains you'd expect would go to the good side. Mainly just because he looks so inherently evil. I mean, no offense. Maybe it's the robotic spider legs or even the shit-eating grin he's always got on. Okay, I guess that's just straight up offensive, but lo and behold, it is true. MODOK stands for Mechanized Organism Designed Only for Killing, which is hilarious and initially strikes me as an inherently evil name, but I guess killing could also be done on the bad guys, right? Well, apparently so, because during the Secret Avengers storyline, MODOK Superior, a clone of the original, actually joins the Avengers. I guess the bar is pretty low for entry. Sorry, that was another mean jab at MODOK. I didn't mean it. Turns out he only really joins the team because he has a crush on Maria Hill, one of the operatives in S.H.I.E.L.D. So, a turn to the good side for love. That's special. Good luck, buddy. We're rooting for you.
Coming in at number 3, we have Loki. Such a great character. I mean, the guy is the god of mischief, and who doesn't love a good prank? We all know Loki has been a hardcore villain for a long time, always fighting with his more muscly, more handsome, more bearded brother Thor. I get where some of this dude's envy comes from. But when we step into the MCU, we originally see him show his face as a villain. He's the first big baddie that the Avengers have to take down, and do they ever stop him from destroying Earth? I mean, there was billions of dollars in damages, but that's the way the news goes.
And that's the way the news goes.
But as his character grows through 3 Thor movies, and then his short appearance in Infinity War, we start to see someone who understands family comes first, and we actually see Thor and Loki start to fight side by side. In Thor Ragnarok, we even see Loki be a key part in the plan that unfolds perfectly to take down Hela and save Asgard, even though Asgard got destroyed. You guys know what I'm talking about. And on top of it, Loki sacrifices himself to save Thor and the entire universe. Well, he tries to save the entire universe. Imagine if that dagger actually went to Thanos' throat, there would have been no movie. There would have been no movie at all. Loki would have been the biggest hero in the universe. Coming in the number 1 spot, we have Galactus, one of the biggest baddies that has ever been in Marvel, both in size and threat. This dude is known as the Destroyer of Worlds. He eats planet after planet, just sucking them down like a cold brew on a Friday night.
Oh my god. That is better than sex.
Even though it seems that this massive evildoer can never change sides to the side of good because he literally needs to eat planets to survive, Marvel Comics managed to find a way to make our once evil Galactus into one of the most powerful forces for good in the entire universe. It was the help of the Ultimates, which was a grouping of some of the greatest heroes ever. They used the original pod that Galactus was created in, which they put him back into, and they used ISO 8, which was a substance that had reality shifting abilities. With this, they were able to make Galactus into a force of good that instead of sucking life from planets, he would restore dead planets full of life. Quite the redemption story.